Radio.
Hi, everybody. Welcome in. You're listening to the Alchemy Annex here on Celestial Intersections Radio, powered by eastrologer.tv. I'm Ernesto. I'm your host, and I'll be with you here for the next half hour for this podcast here. And we have Loretta on the line as we continue and start our conversations for the day. Now, we do want to let everybody know that for the second half of the program from 10:30 to 11, after the podcast is done, we will continue on to take some free calls for all of you for who have your questions for us today. We would love to take some time out to speak with you. And for those of you who want to get a reading with us but don't want to let all of your personal bits and details hang out on the internet, then just go ahead to our link tree, which is now listed in the show description on YouTube, and you can find a way to donate $10 to our show overhead. That does get you a front of the line pass, and you can enter your birth details there, so that way you don't have to let everything hang out on the internet. That's always a great thing because people really crave that privacy for those things there. So we will be cutting the show short, though. The show will end at 11 o'clock, so we only have time for a few calls in that second half. And then we will be back with you guys again on Wednesday for our next program at 6 p.m. Now, Beretta, what is it that we need to know for the first half of this week?
The thing I feel when I'm tuning into the first half of this week, as you step up to ask, is a lot of gloom and doom. I think this is an after effect, or this is like Monday, Tuesday, heading out to Wednesday, but it really shouldn't go any farther than that. So whether it's personal doom and gloom, something you watch, it's like an emotional effect, or you were witness to, and it took it in an emotional effect, or you just have awful feelings about things that you never knew that you cared about. So don't take the doom and gloom to heart. It's a phase, it's a fad, it's a wave. Yes, it comes from somewhere, but unless you can pinpoint that specific place, it's kind of hard to tell whether it's you personally or it's a global, universal thing.
And we do want to wish everybody very happy Father's Day for those of you who are celebrating that today. Now, to everybody else for at a certain age, because we understand sort of the way that life works here on this planet, at a certain age, we become without parents. So for those of you who are on your own, or maybe very recently you've started to figure things out on your own, our hearts are with you in these times, because these types of holidays are are celebrated and really sort of revered in a lot of cultures and a lot of different families. But when you're sort of on your own and doing your own thing, well, then that brings a lot of pain and a lot of just discomfort. So that's specifically why I wanted to do a show for today, was because some of you may not necessarily be in the best family situations. And this is really key because today's topic on the Alchemy Annex here is called I Choose Me. We sort of alluded to this concept in the past, and we're going to actually dig into that today and give you a lot more detail about how that's going to break down for you. But what I really wanted to talk about was the fact that in a lot of cultures, especially in Latin culture, that you have this duty and obligation to your family, that they are going to be always taking all of your time and energy for everything because they're blood. That's just the way it works. This happens a lot in Middle Eastern cultures. I don't know so much about in Asian cultures, but a lot in your Middle Eastern or in your Indian cultures, family seems to be so enmeshed that it becomes a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit weird. So this is really important when it comes to something like I Choose Me, that I may live in a culture where society tells me that my duty is to be a wife and that I need to be obligated to my husband to fulfill that duty and to be here for my family. Meanwhile, I get beat up on the regular. So, but this is just what I have to do because it's part of my duty. No, that doesn't have to be the case. And the same is true for those of you who come from a lot of Latin cultures where your blood is the most important thing of all, and that family always comes first. Well, when your family doesn't necessarily treat you well or even acknowledge you at that, is it really all worth it? Because remember that another piece or another part of abuse is also neglect. We don't really think about this too much, but when I am invalidated because somebody doesn't see me for who I am, or somebody ignores my feelings and the things that I am working on, not just once, not just twice, but every single time after that, there comes a certain point where you sort of have to realize, do I really want to let Uncle Chester take my 4-year-old daughter to the candy store? Does that seem like a good idea? It didn't go great the first couple of times, so why do I think it's going to be any different this time? This type of programming that we're all conditioned with is really difficult to break ourselves from. And actually, it's one of the things that I like least about myself is that I still subscribe to a little bit of this wishful thinking that, oh, it'll be better this time around. I'm not going to enter the hurricane. This other person, Big Bubba, they're going to be different. It's not going to be Conan the Barbarian and all of that nonsense that it was last time. And then I get burned and I get mad because it happens every single time. And then I say, never again, not doing this. But what ends up happening is I just give up and I don't care because I am exhausted. I don't have the energy for anything. Now, what's really important is that in that whole process, I'm totally forgetting about my own needs. I'm neglecting myself so that I can please other people. Or perhaps I am entering what's known as the fog of fear, obligation, and guilt. We can also add duty into that as well. That's a very similar type of, I guess, feeling when it comes to things that motivate us. And while this isn't a program about manipulation or toxic, abusive relationships and how to get rid of them or how to navigate them, that is a definite subpoint of I Choose Me. And I understand that it is insane for us to fully flesh out this topic in a half hour. So over the next couple of weeks, as we're doing our other regular call-in shows, then we will be digging into those other areas or topics of discussion as well. We just want to set the stage for you and sort of what's going to be coming up in this next 2-week period of show topics here. So, in this whole concept of I Choose Me, we're forced to navigate the fog, which is when people try to manipulate us and say, well, if you don't do this, then X is going to happen. And that can range from something very simple like, if you don't come with me to this family gathering, if you don't go get the groceries the way that I asked you to, if you don't, whatever the task is, if you don't do it, something bad will happen. That's using fear, obligation, and guilt to manipulate us. So that's just weaponizing a situation or a conversation in a way that nobody benefits. The other thing that happens is that we don't really learn how to prioritize ourselves anymore, and we just sort of lose track of who we are as actual human beings. And it's quite unfortunate because my needs may be that I need to bathe myself, I need to take care of my health condition, I need to take my medicine, and I'm forgetting to do these things, or I don't have the time or energy to do so because I'm expending myself in all of these other avenues pleasing the people who don't care about me. So therefore, I am unable to just take care of myself and address those issues because I'm too tired. You take everything that I have, and by me not paying attention to myself, then it's creating a little bit of a rift, not with you, not with anything else, but with me. So then what ends up happening is that we get angry and we decide that we don't want anything to do with the world. You turn into a xenophobe. I've done this myself to where I just don't care about what people have to say or who they are or anything else. I just want to stick my head in the sand, tell the whole world to fly a kite, and drown my sorrows in blasting music through my headphones because that tunes it all out and makes it go away. Now, the other side of that is that you may have what's called a savior complex. And a savior complex, for those of you who don't know, is very simply the type of person who always feels like that they have to help people or they have to save them from themselves. So this very often happens in a lot of addiction types of situations where you're living with somebody who's making not great choices and they're continuing to stumble and fall down a hill to where it's getting pretty dark, and you help them out, but they don't see it. They don't see what you're doing, and you're really taking too much of yourself to help this person out, and you continue to get burned every single time. There is a reverse side of that that we'll get into in just a few moments, but this is going to be something that a lot of us may deal with in this whole I Choose Me process, is that we're unable to look past ourselves to say this other person doesn't matter, or because I choose not to help out this other family member who's married to Conan the Barbarian, I'm also hurting them in the process. So you have to learn where to draw those lines and where to go forward from there. So, Veretta, tell us about a time when you neglected your needs, the impact that it had, and how you overcame that situation.
Well, let's just start with the one that made the biggest impact. Um, I neglected me physically for a lot of reasons, and at the time they were always all valid. Right up until I ended up in a hospital being told my thyroid had stopped functioning. Now that's totally um, besides. That's not what I ended up in the hospital for, but that's what they found once I got in there. Um, and I ended up having my thyroid removed when I probably didn't have to have that taken such to extreme, but I didn't know what to do at the time because I was caught up in, oh my God, this is really bad. You got to take care of it right away. We're like, this is what we've seen, and this is what we need to do, and you need to agree to it, and let's move on to surgery, blah, blah, blah. And I felt like swept right up into that current of compliance. And so right along down that stream, and a surgery later, and thyroid removed later, and a parathyroid damage in the process of this. He tells me I had a disease that had I been probably going to the doctor, I might have picked that up sooner. And every bit of that is me not taking care of my needs because all of the above, myself, my significant other, my kids, my job, my extended family, my friends, my church, my I could go on down the line for you with the whole 9 yards of every reason why I would think deemed it was feasible to not look at my needs first. Well, all right. So now fast forward to 7 years later, and I've had multiple surgeries because I repeatedly refused to look at the signs I was receiving, and I picked them up, but I didn't relay them to myself appropriately because that's a lot of how spirit works for us and is of service by bringing us information we need for ourselves in regards to other people. And so you need to be diligent enough to say, okay, whoa, that sounds like something I need to take care of and listen to. So whatever's about to come out of my mouth is going to be important, and I know it. So let it channel. And I would not have even thought about doing that before. Yep, and I would teach it too. Yep, if it's a theme or seems like it's too good to be a coincidence, it isn't. It's spirit trying to get something across to you over and over and over in the readings that you give. So at no level do I have an excuse big enough to say, yeah, no, my needs aren't necessarily important as anyone else. And when it comes right down to it, you have to define what not choosing you means. And if it's at someone else's expense or excuse, then you're really that is also an avenue where you're making a choice to neglect yourself. And so it goes right down to abuse being as simple as emotions, mental. When you condition someone to believe that you're all that matters and no one else does, that's abuse. That's also a narcissistic trait. If you choose you, then you can see where someone else is trying to manipulate you and then decide. But if you can't even see that person trying to manipulate you, you've got a long way to go to being open to understanding that what you have in front of you may not be what you need. And you need to choose yourself first. Once you start fixing all the goodies that you've got going wrong with you, right down to, I don't know, maybe you need to get your toenails done on a regular basis. However it is that you choose you needs to be dealt with, you need to fix that in you first before you're going to find somebody else that's going to make you happy, because that's a wrong misnomer in the fact that you make you happy, not you're a big bubba that's going to take care of you and punch the life out of anybody that gives you because you are somebody. You have to be happy regardless of what situation you have to be. You have just as much energy and right to be happy as the person that you're defending yourself and are not choosing you for. You have just as much right to being able to see when someone needs a little extra you time and when they're just wanting drama. And you have to decide, you want to be the savior? Do you want to play in the drama? Do you want to say, nope, not my circus, not my monkeys? And, or if you're caught right up in the middle of it for whatever reason, you remain integrous in your manner of action, because if you keep it exemplary, it'll come back to you in a positive. If you throw it out there in a negative, I hate this, I don't want to do this is not my thing, then you're going to keep resonating at that level, bringing those kind of people in. You have to believe you're just as valuable as those people trying to make you believe you're not. And when you decide that you're just as good as anybody else needs to be, then you got it made pretty much halfway there.
See, and it's really key that we pay attention to ourselves and our own needs. I'm wired to squash any and all complaints, any and all negativity, and you're probably going to deal with a dragon somewhere in that process to make it all go away. I didn't realize until very recently that I actually behave out of selfishness. That entire process of me squashing all of these things has to do with me. That I'm not doing it to help you. I don't, I'm not really paying attention to the pain or suffering or despair that you're going through in that moment. I'm helping out and going outside of myself for me. So that way I can make the complaint go away and I can just go back to the kittens and rainbows world that I know and love. That's the way that I always want it to be. And when it's not that way, well, then I'm going to squash all of those issues in that process. What I ended up discovering though is that it basically turns into a game of whack-a-mole where I cannot win. I cannot keep up. That little nasty black storm cloud keeps coming up each and every single little time. Will you ever just go the hell away? And I've finally discovered, you know what? I am so tired. I can't deal with anything. I can't even take care of myself because I am exhausted by this game of whack-a-mole that I'm playing. So then what I realized is I want to be by myself. I don't want anything to do with the rest of the world. I just want to stick my ears in some headphones, tune out the world, go fly a kite. I am a xenophobe in this moment. Let me wallow in my pain because I'm sick of everybody and their issues. And when you really take a look at that mindset, you realize, so that's sort of like narcissism in a way. And that's not great. That's not taking the high road. That's not on point for our brand and what we do here. So then it kind of, my own internal dialogue is I'm processing all of these thoughts and figuring out what am I actually trying to feel or say here. I discovered, oh, I just want to be alone. I don't want any of this other stuff. And then I came to the conclusion that the only way that I'm going to get that is by detaching myself from the things that I cannot control, from the people who cannot help themselves, from the people who do not want to listen or have other issues. There comes a point when I have to just take care of myself because that's the way it has to be. I mean, even like people who work in palliative care or hospice care, Veretta, you have personal experience with this, that these situations are so difficult sometimes, and that people may have cognitive or mental issues that are going on at the same time. And we want to do everything that we can to help them because we're natural born healers. But we also have to realize, hey, I need to take my energy in for myself because how am I going to drive myself home or cook myself dinner tonight? How am I going to do any of those regular, normal, mundane things when I'm busy playing whack-a-mole over here? That was the big conclusion that I came to, was that me being needed or wanted doesn't necessarily work out very well for me. So I had to work on my own personal rhetoric that it's not about I'm going to help. It's more that I am going to help out. So like, do you need it? Let me grab you that glass of water since I'm kind of in this area anyway. That's not a problem. But if you ask me for something, then that usually sort of grinds on my gears a little bit, just because that I'm just not used to being wanted in that way. And that's some really deep, dark stuff that I'll get into with my therapist. That's a totally separate conversation. But where I'm going with this particular point is that you really just have to work on the rhetoric of what you're saying in your own internal dialogue. Because when you're able to rephrase it in a way that seems not threatening, then all of these things just magically melt away. So when I realized I'm okay with helping out, but all of that other stuff, yeah, that's not for me, that made it to where all of the hostility and the fear that was associated with being needed or wanted, that didn't necessarily matter so much. So I was able to move forward, but through my own actions of acknowledging that I am enough and that I choose me at the end of the day.
And I too have learned that, as bad as I want to just pretend I'm immortal, I'm not, and I have to choose me first if I want to keep going in the direction in which I see light of day, and not be ridiculous about thinking that, I don't need to worry about that. Oh well, I'll just meditate and bring my blood pressure back down. Yeah, in theory that used to work. Now not so much. So I'm rethinking all kinds of ways of just taking care of myself, putting my foot down, and saying, yeah, no, me too. And guess what? It's right now, and I'm just detaching. I don't hate people, but I do need to take a break from the rhetoric, as you say, and unplug. And but after years of learning how to perfecting it, I can turn completely off and until I actually unplug and not be a part of that, you know, constant bickering in space, if you will. I hear my guide yelling at me to stop, so I won't mess it up anymore.
Well, and Beretta, especially for you as you were younger, it was probably somewhat challenging for you to figure out all of these kinds of lessons about hard boundaries and everything else. Because, when I would imagine that when you were coming to terms with your abilities and what you can do to help people and everything else, that being a sponge, if you're familiar with that concept, that was probably crazy people talk back when. Like that didn't even exist in the
Mm-hmm.
mainstream. And you and I are both sponges today. So what you give us is usually what you're going to get back in a lot of cases. But at that time in your life many years ago, that was insane. That was something that was never heard of. So what advice do you have for people who are emotional sponges when they're dealing with these situations that they don't know how to get out of?
Okay, so if they can't get out of them or they don't want to get out of them, they're in a tough spot. To be a sponge means you want to completely wring yourself out. You want to make sure that you sage, you do affirmation work, you do light affirmation work, you see yourself in that bubble of love. You definitely be consistent with, and continue to work on yourself from the inside out. And when I mean inside out, I mean we're going beyond body inside. We're going back to the quantum realm where you have to know that you are worthy. You exist for a reason. You are meant to be here for something, some place, someone, and you have, when you get what that is, you have just as much right to having what you want. And as the other people that wouldn't. I mean, way back in the day, I didn't know any of this. First of all, um, the word empath was not 30, 40 years ago when I heard the word empath, it's like, I don't know what that is. And so I was quickly taught, as well as being a medium, a trans channel, all kinds of things in the metaphysical world, which prompted me to get my PhD in it because I wanted to be able to teach. And unfortunately, the reality is, if you're not papered, you're not going to be seen as anybody with any kind of information worth listening to. So back in the day, I had to strive for education because I thought that's what was going to make me valued. That was going to give me validity where people were concerned. Nah, not so much. What gave me validity was consistent practice of being a medium. And once I got my feet wet as a professional medium, I never looked back. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I knew no matter what I had to do, again, here I'm not talking about great boundaries, but I knew whatever I had to do, I had to make sure that I could teach, I could talk, I could write books, I could do what I needed to. And my casualness about, oh, well, I don't care if my body survives anyway, you just keep coming back attitude went south. And I never seen that attitude again. And I knew that every day that I woke up, I was here with a mission. And that's everybody, should be everybody's attitude. If you wake up, you have a mission. If you don't wake up, well, it doesn't matter anymore. You know all the secrets. But creating healthy boundaries meant being able to understand that I was worth those boundaries, which then helped me reinforce them. Doesn't matter what they're for. It doesn't matter what the boundaries are on. You got to know you're worth having them before you can enforce them.
Well, you know what's really interesting in the language of astrology is that needs, so like to not necessarily so much self-care, but just needs in the most general sense. That's actually defined by the planet Hades. That really surprised me because I really scoured over the glossaries and rule books that we have when it comes to things like self-care, things that we do to take to help ourselves kind of thing. And if you really reduce the language as far as like the specific term that you're looking for, you're really just wanting to know what are my needs, what is something that I need to take care of, and it's something. What I found so interesting is that it's defined by the planet Hades, which is not a great planet in a lot of ways. It can be very positive in some ways when it's combined with other things, but on its own, it doesn't have a whole lot going for it. Now, here's what's interesting about that. There are two poles to the planet. There's the dark side, there's the death, doom, and gloom side that we would all expect that's familiar with that word. And then on the other side of it, there are things like I take care of health issues. This is something that I have to deal with on the regular, seeing that I am disabled. So when you're working on your health issues, when you're working on yourself, then this brings in things like medicine. This brings in things like spirit. This brings in things like God. This also brings in spirituality in a lot of ways. So there's a very deep, like spiritual component to this planet, but it's really only explored by taking care of yourself and your own issues in that way because one aspect of this planet deals with the shadow self. So by addressing a lot of your shadow issues, then you're channeling that planet in a positive way. So that totally changes the matrix of your chart energy. Now, as we transition into our write-in question that we have here from Patricia today, she asked us a question about what is it I have been in this bad luck cycle for so long and I am just sick of it. When is it going to ever change? Does it ever get better for me? Well, the answer is yes, and here's why. Because if you'll see on your screen right now on YouTube, I have this chart pulled up and I asked specifically the question about my personal change because she feels like that she's really on the precipice of change. Something very big and significant is about to happen. And what is that? So when we look at it and we ask this question in this chart here, you'll see that my pointer head is at 62 degrees and 11 minutes on that green dot. The green dot just very simply represents the midpoint of the blue and the pink dots over there on the left. And there on the green dot, you'll see a green square, which looks like a little hill with a cross on it. And it also has, again, the same symbol in a green square up there on the top. So the fact that you have the same planet repeating two times on the same axis point, that's pretty significant. That means that we can definitely use that meaning in this here. So when we talk about my change, which is Meridian Pluto, and we add that third planet in that square here, then what we're looking at is, my change is powerful because that planet very simply means power. It means divine might. It means explosive things we truly cannot control. There's a lot of other things happening too here in this chart. Over there in those green circles, you'll see the P for Pluto, so that's change. The fact that you have Pluto happening three times, that makes it significant, meaning that this is actually the time when something will change. So then what will change is the next question. So here we can find all of the stuff in the orange. You'll see that I have some circles and some squares, and they just very simply refer to the same groupings of planets. And that's why they're like that. So the square up top means Sun, Mars, Uranus, and on the left you also have another square of Sun, Mars, Uranus, Saturn and Neptune are also very close into that, but just to reduce on the visual clutter, I wanted to only focus on the Sun, Mars, Uranus, but those other two, Saturn, Neptune, are definitely part of that structure as well. And you've also got Mercury along with the moon in the circles. So, what is the change that's here? Now, if I'm being really honest, I'd love to discuss this more in a private because that Sun, Mars, Uranus, that looks not great. And that's not something that I really want to get into on the show here because that's kind of private. To put it as lightly as I possibly could, I want to say that it's something like cardiovascular. This could be like an accident of some kind. This is just like some kind of trauma to the body, that can be not great. But what I will say though is that whatever does happen, you will prevail. It will be okay. And honestly, it is truly the kick in the pants that you need to kind of to say, I am sick of this. I am done with whatever BS that I'm involved with right now, and I'm going to change this finally because I'm ready to live the life that I've always deserved. Now, the other thing too here though is that when it comes to the change, the circles, Mercury, Moon, this is going to be defined by thoughts and emotions. So, something else that's really changing right now is Patricia's thoughts and emotions as far as this whole concept of personal change is concerned. Now, this meridian out here on the third chart, that M, that zips around the chart. So, 4 times every day, it will reach the exact same point in the chart. Now, whenever this M comes into contact with either the blue, the pink, or the green dot, then that means that Patricia will definitely have some type of impact when it comes to her mental energy and thoughts. And I don't necessarily mean like, I hate this person or this is so much better for me. It's more that the internal gears start to just sort of click and it's like, oh, okay, so this little piece just makes a little bit more sense to me now. Knowing that the meridian zips around the chart 4 times in a day and we have 3 dots here, there are 12 different moments every single day when Patricia is going to feel like that something has just sort of clicked or changed. And this is an ongoing process. So remember that change doesn't happen overnight. There are a lot of little gears that need to fall into place before we wake up one day and say, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Now, as far as that stuff in the orange circle, I would like to talk about that for a moment because when we look at this one here, we can see that we are talking about Sun, Mars, and Uranus. Now, this is copied from Ruth software, and this gives us the positive and negative poles of this particular planetary combination, so we can see what this is all about. Now, what's interesting is that it says rebellious, has emotional outbursts, hot-tempered, and inconsiderate. So those are the negative choices. These are like the not great energies that we choose for ourselves to be flustered over something. I know you've called us in the past about a library situation and being bullied or harassed by other people and that it was sort of distressing. So you weren't really sure how to handle it. I mean, very simply, unfortunately, you do have to cut off the gangrenous wound and just move on because everything else that follows just isn't worth your time or energy. And knowing that we're dealing with something that could be somewhat difficult as far as, like perhaps some trauma to the body, which could even be defined as very simply a fall, that's all really terrible. We don't want to get into that. So if we can redirect the energy flow as opposed to being emotionally, upset about any given situation, to change this into something like, let's see here. So high spirited, reformist, innovative. These are all the positive aspects here that we can work with. And we just want to look at this. So, Patricia, if you're watching our YouTube show, be sure to come out here and take a look at this. And also the other thing too, because we have that piece with Moon, Mercury, Vulcanus, the other planets and the orange circles. I wanted to talk about this. This is what you can actually do for yourself in the moment, which is going to be athletic, author, skillful with languages. So I remember you had mentioned something that you were doing some type of like technical writing or content writing of that sort. So really burying yourself into that style of work is a way to get yourself out of your headspace about being so upset about all of these different things. And also just to get into your physical body. So like to do some exercise when it's recommending athletic, that doing those types of activities would be a way to, again, channel that energy. I know for me, when I get really upset, what I do is I just go straight into content writing mode. I just get lost into my book project or into a screenplay or whatever it is that makes me happy. It's usually writing related, but that's always been my go-to whenever I don't feel great about myself. So for you, my the advice of the chart in this case would be to just move forward by allowing yourself to engage in these other activities. And the last chart we have here, you'll see that there's a lot of stuff going on now. We have the first question on the bottom, which is the one that we were looking at before that dealt with the green square with that volcanus there, talking about my personal change. But now we're asking a question about my misfortunes, my bad luck, because Patricia wants to know, does this ever end? Does this ever get better? Well, yes, it does. It absolutely does. And here's how I know that, because when we ask the question on the inside where the dial is set to right now at 7 degrees and 12 minutes, then what we see is that this green dot is the midpoint of the blue and the pink dots that are over here towards the bottom side of things. And now we can add a green circle for Pluto. And we already know that we have 3 Plutos in a configuration at that 22.5 degree point. So that tells us that we have Meridian Hades Pluto. So that means my misfortune, my bad luck, my shadow self changes. And how does it change it for the positive? Because you have Jupiter right below this Pluto right there on the second chart wheel. So that means that whatever is going to happen, you will prevail. I want to say that when that third Jupiter by transit begins to move over here towards this axis point, this won't be until, I want to say, late in the year, early next year, that's going to be the actual kick or push that you need to start moving forward and to shake off all of this unpleasantness that you're dealing with in life right now. So it is coming, but this is the time right now where we can redirect a lot of those energies that are somewhat challenging. And let me be clear when I say that you've also called into us and talked about some health issues, specifically, I want to say with the big C or something along those lines. And that this is going to be a time when that Jupiter hits this point in late this year, early next year, when that health situation is really going to turn around. But again, this is only based on your actions, because whenever we're dealing with Hades, especially, Jupiter can bring us fortune through misfortune, meaning that whatever was not great, you will prevail and it's going to be okay, and that all the right things start to happen. Or it can also just bring more bad things. Now, if it's bringing more bad things, well, that's just very simply because your actions allowed for that to open. So if we're talking about, your negativity and your shadow self and all of that stuff melting away, this is really a time when you want to be redirecting that energy for the positive, because once that actually comes into fruition in about a year or so here, then we're looking at things that could swing both ways. But again, it's totally dependent on your actions in the moment, and I can't tell that based on it. Sounds like that you've really done a lot to work on yourself and change yourself, but you just need that final push, which is just kind of, again, I choose me. I'm not dealing with all of this other stuff because it is just not worth it. I really hope that that's a lesson that comes clear to you. And last but not least, this is absolutely the year when all of that bad luck cycle comes to an end. It comes to a screeching halt, actually, and you get the life that you want. So this cycle, this nightmare movie that you've been living for so long, it's coming to an end. That's about all I have to say. Veretta, what do you have?
Well, I'm picking up also what you're talking about. It just absolutely boggles my mind. But I think the hardest question for her to answer at this point about herself is, indeed, um, can she define the people in her life as all positive people? And if she can say no, then that's who she needs to affirm that needs probably to go, and she needs to make that happen and then redefine her boundaries after that takes place.
And again, as we were talking at
And
the beginning of the show, that's very hard to do out of obligation or duty, especially if it's a family member who's unhealthy or toxic. that we just learn, this isn't for me. I need to get away from this. I've been quite fierce over the past couple of months and realizing I need to do everything I can to eliminate the unhealthy structures in my life. And more importantly, to fill my life with more positivity. And in doing so, I am quite amazed by the results. And I saw some really great inspiration the other day that said something to the effect of when the wrong people are taken out of your life, the right things start to happen.
Well, but sometimes the lesson of these people in your life is not to be taken, not to wait for them to be taken, but to make an affirmative move on paying attention to yourself and your needs and making a boundary, let's say, just making a boundary against something that hurts your heart. I recently had to really kind of put my foot down about my oldest son, and he will be 43 this year, and he's, to me, my little angel. Well, no, my little angel turned out to be a big freaking bully with an anger issue. And I have to admit, it's on me that a lot of that comes up. But the reality of it is, I didn't know better then. I know better now. And because I know better now, I'm going to reinforce it to him. And if he doesn't like that, then okay, my heart's broke, but I'm going to have to tell him, you got to go. And I have had to do exactly that because of his toxicity. He triggers me up and down when we're together alone for any length of time. And so I really had to think about it a brief second of, am I going to let this kid do this to me for the rest of my life? No, 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 I'm not. And right then I put my foot down, and he had to deal with it for a few months. And then he was very apologetically wanting to all of a sudden get back in my life. And, he didn't like being that far away from me when you put your foot down. I don't either. But the reality of it is, he can't be toxic that way with me. I don't care what he does with I mean, I do care what he does with everybody else, but he needs to not be that way. So I can't tell him what to do, but I can tell him what he can't do around me. And it's just that simple. And if he loves you enough, he will come back to you apologetically with future episodes of probably needing to be reminded that, no, mom counts too. Don't talk at me or about me in a negative manner, and we'll learn to get along well.
Well,
And it's
and that
working out so
it
far.
it's really important. One of the pillars of life that makes things a lot easier for us when we keep this in the back of our head is that if a situation isn't changing, it's very simply because not necessarily that we're stuck by our own actions. That's definitely one possible outcome, but also just that we don't have the correct information to be able to incite that change or to process it. So when we have the new information that we need, then we are able to change our set of actions, and that actually changes us on the for better or for worse. Change is absolutely a guarantee in the universe. This is something that we cannot fight, and fighting it is not really a great thing that I would suggest. But the growth piece of it, that is totally optional. It is totally on you if you want to grow from this change or if you want to just stay stuck in the past. There's no judgment here for better or for worse. It's just like I had some change that was presented to me last year, and I decided not to grow from it because I wasn't ready. Now I am, and I've gone through that entire process, so it has absolutely been worth every second of my time. But 12 months ago, I would have told you to go fly a kite because that was crazy people talk. I was not ready to have that yet. So, but the
Yeah.
change, the seed for the seed for change was at least planted into my mind at that point. So it was ready to grow when it was ready to grow. And when I went through that whole process, it was absolutely worth it. So this is something about that a lot of us just kind of get stuck into, is that we're unable to move forward about these things because we don't have the information that we need to just yet. So I do want to let you guys know that, Patricia, thank you so much for writing in for your question for this week on this program. It was really great to be able to show that to you in this type of format, to do a write-in question. Now, for all of our patron subscribers, we do have an option at our activator tier where you get a a free write-in question to the Alchemy Annex here, so you can have your write-in question answered here on the show. Otherwise, you could just buy a friend of the line pass if you wanted to do it that way. But that does come included as part of our activator tier, and all of those questions are just thrown into a queue and drawn at random. And don't despair, because we hope to be doing a lot more of this program over time, just because every 2 weeks is a little bit short. And what we're finding is that, like, this was scheduled as a 30-minute program, and there is so much more to discuss. So to get it all out in 30 minutes once every 2 weeks is just crazy people talk again. So let's try to get it. We hope to expand on these topics a little bit more in the future. And for all other things Iranian astrology, be sure to check out eastrologer.tv. That does conclude this episode of the Alchemy Annex. And we will be back again on July 2nd at 10 a.m., where our show subject will be about the dark arts. We'll be talking about something a little bit different on that program. So we look forward to talking with you then. And for right now, we are going to end this program here and transition into our live call-ins. We'll catch up with area code 646. Thank you so much for waiting on the line. Hi, you're on Celestial Intersections Radio. May I have your name and date of birth, please?
It's Stacy, and date of birth is 8/12/1980.
Stacy, I've read you before, right?
You have, yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, okay, great. So, and I'm sorry, what was your date of birth again?
8/12/1980.
8/12/80. There we go. Okay. All right, and I got you here. Now, Stacy, do you have a question for us, or would you like a general about health, love, or career?
I'm thinking maybe just a general.
Okay, health, love, or career, or do you want us to choose for you?
I'm sorry?
About health, love, or career, or do you want us to choose for you?
I'm going to start with the careers right now.
Okay, all right, Veretta, what you got for Stacy
Because
on
I'm
the
making
career?
changes the end of this month and the beginning of next month, because I have a job that's going to be moving. So,
Okay, all right, Veretta, what you got here?
Alrighty. So I'm feeling the situation more than anything else. It's going to be a little bit of an upheaval, but there's not. I mean, it's not going to be a no-go. It's just going to be a little rough. I want to say best to start. Once that kind of works itself out, and someone is able to come help, if you thought initially, either you had somehow you thought that was a no, and so you were figuring out how to do it by yourself. By the time they get there, it's almost figured out, but they can just do the moving part or the hard work, if you would. Now, I feel like you're going to have a truly angel vessel come out and save you. So don't worry about a lot of whatever the transportation or whatever has to transpire in that. Don't worry about it. I feel like you're correct in thinking that your career type of transition it's going to seem like it's going so slow to you, but you're going to need that time, and Spirit's allowing you to have that time in this time frame, whatever this example of this time frame is. I don't know whether you're waiting for an answer about something, you don't know about something, it's got to take place. So I feel like once you have all you need in resources, you'll have all you need to make everything else work. And if so, can you give her some?
Yeah, so taking a look here, first of all, I can see that this new job that you're going into, that this is the right thing for you. So if there were any doubts in your mind about, like, I'm not sure if this is the one for me, this is kind of a lot of upheaval, this is sort of a lot of higgledy-piggledy just to kind of get to the next step of my life. Well, that's because you're on the right track. So this move is absolutely something that's going to be good for you. And I also feel like that the job itself is going to bring a lot of opportunities that will allow you to create a career for yourself. I know we've talked in the past about some other career related issues, and that you've sort of had some ups and downs in the past. And that this is actually, I think that you're starting to move more into what you're actually wanting to do, something that doesn't feel like the traditional grind where you're just stuck. That this is, you get to be yourself for a change. And this is also going to give you a lot of that creative inspiration that you're really looking for, that you've been missing for so long. Like the fire that makes Stacy, you're actually going to get that back. So this cycle of just kind of like, I don't know what I think about any of this. It just, when you're asked at the grocery store, paper or plastic, and you just don't give when you just don't give a bother anymore, then that's just going. That story, that narrative has finally come to an end, and this new location is definitely going to bring that for you. The excitement and the changes that are all headed your way. It's all very positive. So I don't know if you were sort of worried about this, but I really feel like that this is going to be the right thing for you. And specifically that you're going to fall into a new network of contacts. So this is going to be like an entirely new set of people, unlike what you've ever had before. And it's going to give you that drive and desire to want to wake up in the morning because, like, oh, the air feels so good. The sky is so blue. I love all these people. You're really going to fall back into what makes life good again.
All right. Sounds excellent. I love it.
Yes.
So I am on the right path. Okay.
Yeah, so this is all meant to be. This is all definitely in the cards for you. The only thing I want to say is that the job, may bring a little bit of confusion to you. And I want to say that that's specifically going to have to deal with like admin policies. So just make sure that you really understand the ins and outs of all of the workings of the company that you're going into and how all that works, to really make sure that, like, can I get away with this? If you're one of those people that likes to cut corners like me, that you have to figure out, can I really do that? Like, is it truly the end of the world if I come back from my lunch 2 minutes late, kind of thing? Like, those are the kinds of big questions that you need to iron out now, because like if you've struggled with that in the past, where like I got let go from a position out of something that was totally stupid and could have been avoided if I had known better. Well, that's exactly what you need to know now.
Okay, so I'll get back from lunch 10 minutes early.
Yeah. So just don't do anything to rock the boat. Just be a model citizen, and everything is going to start going the way that you would like it to.
Just a model citizen. Okay.
Okay, well, Stacy, it was great.
Okay.
It was great to have you on the program. Just want to let you know that we are transitioning into a paid patron model. So we will be doing that, and the QR code is on the bottom left of your screen. Our basic plan starts as low as $8 a month, and that does allow you to get into our regular shows that we'll be doing, but it'll be members only that are not televised on YouTube. It'll be a private show and a platform for you guys to connect with each other and talk that way. So everybody who's on this journey of change, we can go through this together.
Okay, I'm going to listen to the show again. Yes, I will be applying for the membership.
Okay, for sure. Well, it was so great to have you on the show. I'm so glad that you came back to us, and we hope to catch up with you again soon. Be sure to give us a call back and let us know how it turns out.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care until next time. Many blessings. Okay, what a great show. And we're going to catch up with Patricia in just a few minutes here. I do see you on the line, so we want to follow up with you on that write-in reading that we just gave to you. But I just want to thank Stacy again for coming back to us and let everybody know that we do have our Patreon program that is available. Just scan that QR code down on the bottom left side of your YouTube screen. It is also in our link tree at the very top, so you can't miss it there. So what I just wanted to talk about with Stacy was that whenever you're having that hesitation and you're not really too sure what to do with life, just follow your instincts, follow your intuition. Intuition is learned, instinct is not. That's like the gut instinct that we feel like, oh, I shouldn't go to work today. This feels bad. Or like, the people who narrowly avoid death because some tragedy or accident or terrible thing happened and they just decided to turn left instead of turning right, kind of thing. That's just sort of like, that's an instinct thing. We can't learn that. That's primitive. And when we follow life in that fashion, all of the right things start to fall into place. So it's really quite magical when we experience that. Now we're going to catch up with Patricia here at area code 216. Hi, you're on the air. Patricia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ernesto. Hi.
Hi. So I'm not going to pull up your chart. I just want to get what you had to say about the write-in question that you wrote to us. Now, does that all make sense to you about sort of what you can do and where you're at right now?
What I heard, because I was trying to pull it up on YouTube and look at the chart, and of course I don't know how to read that astrology. But basically, what I did catch about the library situation, yeah, I'm just going to go to another branch to get, pick up the Wi-Fi hotspots, and if I have to use the PC, because now I'm pushing back my departure date. So I'll be leaving in August 15th by Amtrak. So, and of course now, and I'm still applying to, remote work. So I'm keep on, increase my applying to the applications, and but also to answer your question, yes. But also I had several skills and areas I wanted to, and yes, the content writing was one of them, but also the coaching. So I've been listening to fact coaches on YouTube, their particular channels, and other persons, their strategies. And I'm just going to purchase a affordable life coach just to give me that foundation. And then because I want to focus in on mindset coaching and obviously niche down to that. and of course that would be online.
Well, and don't forget that we have our patron program, and our activator tier has all of these bonuses, that a lot of what you're describing, and it's a much more personalized service level than what you get in like our regular alchemist tier, which has a lot of the similar types of offerings. And that activator tier is very limited. We can only take a select number of people just because of the time that's required on our end. So we do want to let you know that is
Right.
available if you're into learning more about this, because you get a lot more access to Veretta and what she does as far as like the metaphysical aspect of things. So I just want to let you know that that's out there as well. And that QR code is in the bottom left of the YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. So yes, yeah, I like the subject. I choose me. I definitely choose me, and like I said, just I'm moving forward, clearing out the clutter, and like I said, getting these remote works jobs. At least I'll have monies coming in while I'm building up these skill sets, and just trying to choosing one skill set that I can quickly entree into, learn, and yes, practice, and then just move forward out there. Obviously pray for guidance, be wise and discerning, and then just do my best and help those groups of people, and move forward. So yes, and then with all this other, I'm going to be respectful and say distraction. Just focus in like on the writing, or obviously my health, and being constructive. And so yes, it's a beautiful day out. So I went out earlier today and did connect with just quietly, I guess, meditation, and it was very good, very good.
Well, I'm so glad that it's starting to fall into place, and to let you know that your financial situation, that's also going to be something that will definitely change as far as that bad luck and all of that other stuff we talked about. That will definitely start to have some upticks and some great things that'll start happening. You won't notice that again till about the end of the year, early next year, that's really,
90 seconds.
really when that's going to go into effect. And I know we're going to run out of time, but I do want to close the show out here. Thank you so much for everybody who joined us, and to you, Patricia, as well. Thank you so much for giving us a call and being a subscriber. We will be back with you guys again on Wednesday at 6 p.m. for a 1-hour show. And again, I choose me. When you choose me and establish those boundaries and put yourself first before all of those other things that just drain the life out of you, it really is quite magical, everything that
60 seconds.
Thank you.
right, for sure. And we will catch up with you soon. And until next time. And Desmond, we do see you here out on the line. So we do want to thank you for coming out with us today. And we will be back with you on Wednesday. So give us a call then and we'll take care of you on that show. So Beretta, thank you as always. It was great. And I really enjoy this format. That 60 minutes just flew by. So much more than a 30-minute podcast. But we will do this again in a couple of weeks and continue these conversations over the next few shows.
Sounds like it's going to be very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. So, yay.
Well, thank you guys, everybody, for joining us today, and we will be back with you until next time. Until the next program, good luck and God.
10 seconds.